Welcome back to the Daddy Debates podcast, brought to you by musicfootballfatherhood.com. And this is the podcast for dads who want more open conversations around fatherhood. And today we're going to get into a really interesting topic around culture and around being parents and black fathers, how we navigate being in mixed race, interracial relationships, and how we grow our children with the different cultural experiences and make sure they've got that balance in their experience as well, and the issues with navigating that. So I'm Elliot. To my right, I have
Kalai.
And I'm Michelle.
So it'd be good to, I guess, talk about the situations we're in terms of our relationships and our children. So I'll start. So my parents are from Grenada and St. Vincent. They were born there, came over here in the 60s. And I have one child, she's 4. And my wife, my daughter's mum, is from Zimbabwe. So we have we're both black, but within that there's very different cultures.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm Jamaican. Both my parents were born in Jamaica, and my wife is her parents. One parent from Montserrat, and her mum is from Guyana. So yeah, that's where the cultures are. So my kids have the kind of triple thing going on there, Caribbean heritage.
I'm Jamaican. I was actually born in Jamaica, so technically I am Jamaican. Came here when I was a kid, and my daughter's mother is half Spanish, half English. So yeah, that's the mix there.
So how old were you when you came to the UK?
3.
Okay.
And then came here, and then went back again, and then came back again.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So the second time, how old were you when you came back?
18.
18?
Oh, wow.
Okay. So how long did you spend? Give us a time.
Give
us a timeline.
I came here when I was 3.
Okay.
We lived in Birmingham then came to South London, and then went back again when I was 16. Did A-levels out there, then came back here again for university. And my parents live out there, so I just go back there for holidays now.
Interesting.
So you're quite familiar with both Jamaica and obviously England.
Cool, man. Okay, cool. So I guess let's start with you. So in terms of, I guess, you have a mixed race child, black and white, Spanish in there as well. Like, how do you find that? How have you found navigating that?
Where to start?
How long we got?
I think this will become I don't want to call it an issue, because I think that's the wrong word to use. It will become more pertinent the older she gets. And the reason I say that is because as Aurora comes to terms with it herself, so it's no use me saying this is how I find it, because actually this is how I find it will change as she finds it. If you get where I'm coming from. As I find it right now, it's something that, and actually when you brought me into the MFF team, one of the first articles I read, I think it might have been Ariel.
Ariel
wrote it. Was Ariel who wrote it? About somebody, I don't know, but just about dealing with being in a mixed race relationship. It's something that is constantly in the background in my head, and sometimes in the foreground, in the sense of my roots, my heritage directly are Jamaican, both for myself and in terms of parents. My parents live out there. Every time I go to see my parents, I'm going to Jamaica. So there is no way I can raise a daughter and not have her be aware of her roots and her heritage. But my daughter primarily spent her time with her mother. And that's no problem. Like, that's just how the arrangement works. And I'm just wary that no matter whichever way I look at it, her dominant experience growing up will be a Western European experience. Even if it was both of us together or live a minute, it would be a Western European experience. I now look at how my parents raised me, because we came here when I was 3. Every holiday from the age of 3 to when I went back there at 16, we went back every single year to Jamaica. When my dad made me go and do A-levels in Jamaica, he later told me that he did that on purpose, because he said he wanted me to make sure I was fully aware of my roots and never forgot where I came from. And I haven't. And it's still important to me to connect with home and touch yard and see my parents, etc. So I can't see how I wouldn't want that for my daughter. Now, the difference is I might be directly Jamaican, so I was born there, great. Unless I directly make it a mission for my daughter to know that. She'll never know that. It'll just be some obscure thing. So there's a bigger question that we as Black fathers and as fathers, because it's not about just being Black fathers, it could be any father of any kind of cultural dynamic, but there is a bigger issue here as to how important is it? And if it is important, how far should we go to make sure our children are aware of their culture? Or is it something they have to navigate themselves in the modern era in which we're growing up in? So, for example, your daughter is essentially half Caribbean, half African. But actually, in actual reality, she's Black British. Do you see what I mean? And her primary identity, technically, as with mine, her primary identity should be mixed race British, Black British, Black British. That should be their primary identity. But culturally, there is something about being a Black father which means you better know your roots. You better know your roots. And I can't explain why we've got that ingrained in us, but there is something ingrained in us. And I think it's a shame if it's not ingrained, because I'm fairly certain our parents would want us to have that. So is that something for the Black diaspora whereby we must pass it on, or do we allow our kids to navigate?
And I think, I guess in a sense, I guess you were quite lucky the fact that you are connected. I've been to Grenada a few times, and I think it's like, I guess, I've never been to St. Vincent, I've been to Grenada a few times. And I guess that kind of how do we pass on our culture is quite difficult for me, because my even sense of my culture is probably more Black British, to be honest. So my parents, they go there every year and stuff like that. And there was talk of a family holiday next year and whatnot. But I think, I guess, my daughter's half African from Zimbabwe. And when I just look at cultures in general, that culture is a lot, I would say, stronger in terms of there are more traditions. There's speak Indwele, so their parents will talk Indwele. They speak English as well, but obviously their native language is Indwele, and that is a different language. Obviously, they have very strong family traditions, which is good. It's very much based around family, and people can if you're family, then you're family. Whereas I guess in Grenadian Caribbean culture, you are family, but you know who your cousins are to an extent. You know what I mean? Not everyone's your uncle. Do you know what I mean? Whereas in Zim, it's a lot more about everyone's kind of looks after each other. Like that village is kind of still there. And in the UK, I see that with my wife's family more than with my family. Then there's other things like food. There's more traditions in terms of the way they do things. And I guess, am I concerned that she might not get a direct balance of both? I don't think I necessarily am. I think as long as she is exposed to both, and as long as she understands where her mum is from and where her dad is from, and she gets opportunities to be immersed in that, and she has a good understanding of that, I don't feel like it's a concern as she grows up as kind of what she identifies stronger with. I think she'll work that out, I hope to think. And, I think we were talking earlier about the wider context around society. So, back when I was in school, being Caribbean, especially being Jamaican even, being Grenadian wasn't necessarily cool. Being Jamaican was cool. And that was the dominant culture, musically, slang and food. That was the thing. And being African, I say, wasn't cool. Whereas now it's, not saying being Caribbean Jamaican is not cool anymore, but being African is more prominent now. Our Stormzy's and people that are doing a lot of stuff in the UK are African. And I think being African now is cool, and it wasn't before, and now it's very cool. I went to a Burna Boy concert a month ago, and there were just Black people and white people all there just to see an African artist. And that 10, 15 years ago would never have happened. So you think now, if you're African, especially Nigerian, for example, go and see Burna Boy and be like, wow, this is an artist that's speaking my language, like tunes like Dangote and all those tunes. I don't know what he's saying, but it just sounds good, right? So I'm just singing along. It could be saying anything. But I'm just like, sounds good. I feel it, man. I feel the soul in this. I love it. I don't know what you're saying. But I was thinking, imagine that's your language. And you're seeing all these people coming for this artist. He sold out Wembley Arena. Do you know what I mean? 10, 15 years ago, that would never have happened. So I think there's that wider context that she'll grow up in. We're talking now, 2020. when she's older, it'll be 2035 when she's 20. Who knows what the context is going to be then? You know, like with Brexit, with things will change. So, and I was having this conversation as well yesterday with my wife around planning for like looking at the future. And sometimes we plan the future based on where we are now. So we make plans on the future for the context we're in now, whereas the context in 2035, we don't even know what that context is going to be like. So it's hard to kind of predict, I guess, how she will feel when she's 20. But I think my job is to make sure she has that exposure of both and a good balance of both. I think that's probably my duty to do that. And it does mean that you have to, as you said, be purposeful about it. Because if you're not purposeful about it, then it's very easy to forget because you're consumed by where we are now and immediate priorities and stuff like that.
I hear that. Yeah, no, I hear that. I mean, like I said, Jamaican, wife, Montserrat and Guyana. So it's a Caribbean setting in terms of heritage and culture. But I grew up with a real sense of kind of Jamaican culture in the household. Both parents being born in Jamaica, both moved here. And then they've moved back to Jamaica since. So they've been back to Jamaica for the last 12 years. They now live there and retired there. So we visited every year. We'd frequently visit. They got married in Jamaica. So I've got a real strong connection and love for Jamaica. So I've always grown up feeling very much like I'm kind of Caribbean British. And that's how I've always defined myself, even more so than Black British. I've always said Caribbean British. But I've had still a very strong sense of Britishness as well. I'm like, okay, cool. I think maybe the way that the landscape of our political and social landscape has caused me to question that sometimes and think, okay, what's my affiliations? Where do I sit? You know? And I think because of that, I've probably searched for a deeper connection to, yes, my Caribbean heritage, but also African heritage, like beyond the kind of where it stops. Like I know it doesn't just stop at Jamaica for me. I'm like, I know it goes further back, and I want to connect those dots for my children so that they kind of just have a sense of, okay, well, you know, in terms of, you know, ancestrally, where did we come from? Where did we begin? What's, you know, just who are we? So they've been to Jamaica, and we thought that was really important. So yeah, we've got to go to Jamaica. So we've been there, we've seen Jamaica. They loved it. That was great. And I always feel when I've been to Jamaica, I've always felt like, and this is really strange, but when I land in Jamaica, I just feel like I'm at home, even though I wasn't born there. And my wife said to me the other day, she said, you know, when you go to Jamaica, you're different. And it's just, I don't know. It's like, I feel like I'm just in Wakanda and just the vibranium's just, I just feel strong. There's a connection that I can't explain. It feels like, yes, I just feel comfortable and just connected. But then someone saw me at church one time and we were talking about where we're from and how we've been to Jamaica, and he goes, oh, have you been to, and then he asked me if I'd been to Montserrat or Guyana, and we haven't been. I said no, and he was like, he stopped me, the African man, he stopped me and he grabbed me and he said, make it happen. I was like, okay, uncle, I'll make it. So I know that we have to get the kids to Montserrat, have to get them to Guyana, so that they just see that it's not just about Jamaica, which was a massive part of Caribbean influence growing up, and unfairly so, because actually there are so many colours and shades of Caribbean that should be celebrated. But so I want them to still feel that as well. But yeah, I think fundamentally my wife is very, very much the same mindset in that we still want to have a real sense of just our African roots as well and heritage. Because I grew up in a home where we had the posters on the wall and the information. My dad was a very rootsy kind of cultural man. So he was very much into that. And, you know, I would say to some degree had elements kind of Rastafarian values as well. And as well as kind of a bit of a mixture of values. But yeah, so I grew up in that setting as well. So I want to be able to provide that for my children.
And that's a good point, because I only realised probably like maybe 10 years ago that growing up in my house, top of the stairs, there's a picture of Bob Marley, Malcolm X, and Martin Luther King. And I never consciously thought of that. But if you asked me growing up, I probably wouldn't have been able to say what was at the top of my stairs. It was so subconscious, I didn't notice it until afterwards, after I got back from home from uni actually, and be like, oh my God, that's been there all these years and I never actually realised it was there.
But it does.
But it goes in. And we were talking about the other day in terms of in Eleanor's room, like just putting up more pictures. She's got like nice little pictures, little black girls and stuff on birthday cards and whatnot, and just putting it around the house. So we don't necessarily have to preach stuff to her. Sometimes we will, but not all the time. But you just see it around the house, right? And then take her to a lot of family events. So she, when she goes to my wife's family around Christmas or whatnot, there's lots of music and people around, and she's just immersed in with her people. And at the same time, when she's with my side and my parents, again, just immersing herself in her people. So she's very, and that's the one thing I did have growing up. Not necessarily a strong sense of like Grenada or St. Vincent, but I had a strong sense of my family and my cousins. So I knew what it was like to be in a big Caribbean house, albeit my grandma lived in Tottenham and it was a UK version of that, but we had that, and that's one thing that I'm probably even more so really want my daughter to have, is that connection with her cousins. That is 100% important. I think when you grow up, if you didn't have that when you were younger, your cousins can seem distant. Whereas if you grew up with them, I don't see my cousins now, maybe once a year, but it's like we grew up together, so that bond is never broken. And I just think it's so important at a young age to make sure that they are exposed.
It's interesting you say that, because I don't think I have. I don't see my cousins a lot, and I think there's a lot of my cousins I don't. There's a lot of cousins I don't know. So I grew up and we went to the family events, the christenings, blah blah blah. But it didn't materialize. Whereas now we're now starting to see the importance of that. So my wife is really instrumental in trying to like bring the cousins together. She's created the WhatsApp group, and it's like, okay, actually I can see the importance, because you're right. They're passing each other in the street, and I think I've probably passed cousins in the street, and I've been to events. We've probably been in the same building, and I just didn't know it was my family. Yeah.
So have you had any, with the cultural differences in our relationships and children, have you had any like conflict, or has there been any real difficult things? I'm sure you're smiling at me. Leading question. But has there been any conflict that you had to work through, especially?
I don't know why it is.
So having really come to the studio, man. Walk through those doors.
Welcome. Without directly talking on conflict, what I would say is that I think it will be I would love to, when this comes out, I'm going to save it and I'm going to play it to my daughter when she's whatever age. And say, this is what I was saying about growing up as a mixed race child in Britain in 2020, and see what her experience actually is. I don't know what it is or means to be mixed race, and that's the first thing I think I need to say here. So I can speak for her, but I'm speaking from a Caribbean, Black British perspective. I don't know what a mixed race child feels or identifies with, or the issues they have as they grow up, and I've never really spoken to a child, or an adult I should say, about it. What I do know is she has the right to be deep and embedded in both cultures. There will undoubtedly come moments for her where there will be confusion. And actually, who made the cousin point? So something that I've been doing a lot in the first year and a half is, my sister's got 2 kids, my brother's got a child. We try to get all 4 of them together regular. I don't know why that's important to me, but it's important. And I think it will be important for her. Those kids growing up as 4 is probably more important than anything I can tell her. And then just seeing that, this is my family. But that doesn't mean that should supersede her experience on the other side of the family. In terms of conflicts, though, if I try to answer that, I think there will come moments of cultural, I don't know if conflict's the word, but there will come moments of cultural difficulties. There are certain Caribbean characteristics. I can't pinpoint certain things, but let's pick something silly. But there are certain Caribbean characteristics. It's just the way we are. And maybe you could say do better than that. But things like, for quote unquote black people time, it's just the way we are. And I don't know if that's a good example to use, but that's a cultural. Is it cultural? I think it's a cultural thing.
Like, you understand that culturally.
It's a cultural.
It's learned,
things like I'm trying to pick things which aren't contentious, but you understand what I mean. Things like being in an area and you see another black man or woman and you ain't seen one for the last 2 hours. You do the nod straight. You do the greeting. You do the international greeting and say, "Boy, I know what you're saying."
It's an unspoken language.
Things like these are all cultural experiences of being black, whether in Britain or possibly, certainly in Europe. And that's my experience in Europe. And there are things like that that you can't understand if you haven't had this experience. And I think the biggest worry I have for my daughter growing up from a cultural perspective is I desperately want to believe times will change. But I'm going to judge Britain on what it is now. And let's assume that nothing changes for the next 10 years. The first moment she experiences racism. In fact, it's the same for your... I don't know why I'm talking like it's going to be something specific to mine, but the area she lives in currently is predominantly white. Okay. And I'm not saying that means that she will experience racism, but there will be at some point in her life, in her first however many years, she will come across that first moment where somebody just says something that blows her mind. And have you had it? I don't know if any of you have had it yet with your kids, where they come home and say, "Oh, such and such said that." I think you said to me something in the group chat the other day, and was it you?
Yeah, I've had a couple, man.
Anyways, sorry, stealing your thunder there, but she comes back and says, "Such and such said something," and that will be the first moment she realizes she's not whatever the norm is, and that fills me with a level of anxiety that unless her mother and myself both properly approach that and talk to her on the level of what it means to be mixed race in Britain, in Europe, in the global context, it could send her down. That can. Well, I don't want to think about it, but it could send her left, right, whatever. So that's why it's important. Anyone who says, "Oh, it's not important to teach culture," no, it is, because you're assuming that people can navigate that themselves. I went to a school. My parents put me in a school at 11. They put me in a grammar school in Kent. I was one of 2 black boys in the entire year group. In that year we went. And the year group was 90. There were 2 black boys. Wow. In the whole school of 900, there were 6 black boys. Wow. Now I often joke and laugh at my parents now. Go, what on earth were you playing at? But the school was the best school in the area. Yeah. And I got in, it would have been stupid. They saw it in the sense of, you know how it goes for black families when you're over here. That's cultural, that's social mobility. This will set you up. And it did. It did, so I can't front. But on a cultural level, what... My friends might watch this and be like, no. But
safe space, man. Safe space.
On a cultural level, there are elements of that experience that probably messed me up. So, do you remember Elliot said to me the other day, you know, I was sending stuff in the group chat about, oh, this is the music I listen to. Everyone sending their top 5. And it's Stormzy. It's Stormzy. It's this. It's that. Meanwhile, I send my top 5, and it's like people that no one's ever heard of. It's indie music, and it's emo. And my only retort was, but I had a different experience.
My response was like, Michelle, you're an interesting guy. I was like, and JJ was like, who are these people? And there's a song called Tesco Express. And I was like, who made a song called Tesco Express? It was a good song.
But the thing is, when we talk on culture, it is things like that though. Yeah. So if that's my experience being one of 6 black boys in a school of 900, I have to assume and accept that my daughter growing up in an area where there won't be as many black faces, and she's mixed racial, so I'm using the word black, like even that in itself, am I saying the wrong thing there? Yeah. But there will be points where she'll wonder, what's the norm? I'll hand over to you two, but your kids, I don't know what schools they're going to, what the area and the demographics like, but there will come a point, whether it's now, when they go uni, or if they get a good job, or if they get a job in a particular industry where it's like, even now you're an actor, don't talk on it, but even now as an actor, I'm fairly certain there'll be moments where you've walked into a place and be like, boy, do you see what I mean? So we're still navigating this now as big people. Never mind our kids. So I've been waffling on, but
for me it's been like, so we moved to Watford in October, and it's cool. It's walking around, it's very mixed. You've got, I feel completely comfortable there. I think we went for her first school, her primary school, and I wasn't quite sure if the teacher got this wrong, but there was a question saying what percentage of children is English their first language? And the teacher said 40%. And I was like, is that right? Only 40% of the kids have English as their first language, but I'm assuming that was correct. So it's a very multicultural area, but at the same time, it's not as multicultural as where I grew up, and she will be in a minority still. So when I say multicultural, it's like literally multicultural. There's a lot of Asian people, there's a lot of Eastern European people, white people, there's black people, but there's not loads. And we think about this all the time. We really, as much as we want to go to a good school and get good education, it's probably as important that she's in an environment where she feels comfortable. Because I don't want her to put her in a position where she's the only black kid in the school. I just don't. In our preschool at the moment, it's a Montessori.
Sorry to interject, but why?
Because I feel like because I think the difficulty of navigating that, she might have a good experience, I don't know, but the risk that it's a negative experience, I'm not necessarily willing to take, because I think if it's a negative experience and she is like not quite sure where she fits in, if I can avoid it, and there's as good school or a school that I still think is good but has a mixed kids that a different mix of kids, I'd rather she go to that school. So there's a Watford Girls Grammar School which is near us, and she's a few years away from that. But one of our decisions about whether she goes to that school, we know it's a good school, we know the outcomes are good, cool. But if we go there and I'm thinking, she's literally gonna be the only black kid in the whole class or year group.
Matter. I'm putting you on the spot here. Now, technically, should we not be at a point where we're all going, no, it shouldn't matter?
I think it does. I think
it does.
Yeah, it does.
Should it?
I think it does. We can say, it shouldn't or it doesn't, and it's all an individual decision. But for me, it does. I want her to be comfortable in her environment, and that is and education, the quality of the education. I'm not saying I'll put her in a rubbish school, right? But if there's a good school that has mixed kids, that's maybe a bit further away or something like that, versus the school that's on our doorstep that we know is a great school, but actually we think, is she going to feel so out of place here and the only one? I don't want to risk putting her through that experience for it to be a bad experience. Because, going back to what I was saying in the previous podcast, making decisions and saying, will I be happy with that? If I put her in a school where I know she's probably one of the minority only black kids and she has a bad experience, I wouldn't be able to live with myself. If I put her in a school it's still a good school, I don't put her in a bad school, but still a good school, maybe it's a bit more inconvenient in terms of where it is or whatever, and it goes wrong there, I would be able to live with myself, So it's about just what I'm willing to risk. And I think, she's only 4 now, and this happened when she was 3. She came home and she said, a kid said she's a boy because she's got Afro hair. There's now a black girl in her class as well. So they're calling, said, "Oh, are you a boy?" And then she said, "Why is my skin brown?" And all these sort of things, And
so you're not gonna have to pause for me there. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's your podcast. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
How did that make you feel? Honestly, how did that make you feel?
Tough, man. That week,
Beyonce's. Were you like running down the store?
Well, cameras off. So that week, Beyonce's song "Brown Skin Girl" came out, like literally the next day.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! When you do the top play on Spotify, on my wife's phone, Beyonce "Brown Skin Girl" is the top played song of the year. Yeah. Because we have battered that song. This year we battered that song because that's one of our ways of her celebrating herself.
Shout out Gets as well.
And Gets Black Rose, yeah. That's one of the songs. It's a cool song. Yeah, she doesn't know who Beyonce is, but it's a cool song. It's a nice beat, and it's celebrating her. And so we play that every morning. Every morning on the way on the preschool, I do a drop off, and I say to her, "We're getting a certain bit of traffic every day," and she's like, "Daddy, you can say it now." And I'm like, "Ernie's beautiful, her skin's beautiful, her hair is beautiful, and if anyone hits her, hit them back harder." But I say it to her every day because I'm like, you need to know, like, I'm not gonna say this. Oh, we're all the same. Forget color. No. People are telling her who she is. So if I don't tell her now and make sure she knows who she is and make sure she knows why she is who she is, the fact that look at daddy and mummy and like, you know, grandparents, or and if I don't make sure she knows she's beautiful and that everyone is beautiful and everyone's different, if I don't do that, some other kid, whether they're nasty or not, will do it for her. And I think that's the thing in terms of, I think as black fathers and black parents, we don't have the luxury of not talking about race with our children. Like we need to. If we don't, other people will. And I'd rather she has those conversations and someone said to her, oh, why are you brown? And she said, oh, well, my mum's brown and my daddy's brown. And I know that being brown is beautiful. You're beautiful too, but my hair, I'd rather she's equipped with that 100%. Rather than just sending her out here and like, you know, there you go. Work it out. You're 4 years old. And we need to have those conversations. And it's difficult. And the way you do it is through, you know, books. And she's got loads of books with different characters in it. We will make sure the TV she watches is mixed. Again, making sure she's with her cousins and her family. There's ways you can do it without just kind of like, you know, being so direct. But it's just how do you subconsciously do it as well as having the conversation as well. Yeah.
I think it is. It's about the conversation, man. I agree totally with you guys. I think it is important to teach culture to our kids. And I think, it's about just giving them those clear identity markers so that when they're in those environments, they'll survive and they'll know who they are. 100%.
So have you had any like conflicts with the different cultures? I
wouldn't say really conflict, to be honest with you. No, I think it's you know, both Caribbean cultures, and I think really it's just, I guess it's just other than just differences in how we might cook or just, you know, things like that. You know, I don't want to say silly little things like that, but just kind of general day things like that. I don't really think there's ever been much conflict, but because our families kind of grew up together and know each other quite well, I think that's probably set the context where it's just sort of been quite a peaceful union in that regard culturally. But going forward, it's just about making sure they know who they are in every sense of the word. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, it does, man. It does. I think
you've done it before and then he said it.
So I think we were doing it.
Like you're probably doing it, but did that then trigger a boy? We better like amp it a bit now.
So it triggered the more direct route. So we were doing a lot of the stuff before. And the indirect stuff that I was talking about, the literature, the cousins, the books, blah, blah. But I think after that, we were like, oh, actually, we need to be more direct now. And we need to have conversations I didn't think I was going to have at that age. She was free. So this is maybe like in the summer. So she's 3 3/4 or whatever. And, you know, she's very intelligent, like as kids are. They understand things, you know, they get it. I think sometimes we think that they're not taking stuff in. They're not listening to us. They're very much listening. They outsmart us sometimes, you know what I mean?
That too.
But for me, it was earlier than I thought I was going to have the conversation, and earlier than I wanted to. But in a way, I guess it wasn't anything that was, I think, racist. It wasn't a nasty thing. I think kids making observations.
Yeah.
And so I was happy that it was something that came out as what I think was a kid making an observation rather than a targeted like racist thing. But yeah, I think that's taught me, like, if we have another one, to probably have that conversation earlier. And also just going forward about making sure that she is aware and equipped with her own narrative. And, you know, I think, you know, even looking back in my childhood as well, like, and being able to have like honest conversations with your parents. I think our parents' generation maybe didn't necessarily do that so much. Some did, but in general, be able to talk about some of the more difficult things. Maybe they just had other priorities and stuff like that. But I feel like I never had that conversation necessarily with my parents, really. Even now, it was truly started to recently as I've become a parent. And then maybe in my early 20s, around, you know, not getting in trouble with the police and whatnot. But actually, in the direct conversations as a child about who you are, where you've come from, what may be your experience in the world, and helping to guide them through that, I would hope to think now I've kind of will be able to do that. Versus
it's got something we were discussing, not necessarily earlier here, but just earlier in general. We grew up in a different era, and I do think we probably have to see that. Unless I'm wrong, I feel like we grew up in an era where it was like self-navigate. Like that don't mean our parents abandoned us. No, not at all. But there's very much a work this out. Like upper stiff lip, you know. You know, what's the number one thing I'm gonna assume something big here, but I guarantee the number one thing that we all have in common that our parents said to us is, when you go through life, you've got to give 110% because because of how society works. No one's going to notice you. That was the Caribbean or African experience growing up. That's what you're going to have to do to even get an ounce of notice. Our children are lucky that it doesn't apply as much nowadays, but there are still there's a different type of issue to navigate now. They've both got the world at their fingertips, but that's also the danger. At the same time, they don't have this narrative of you've got to give 110% and you're going to experience this, just get on with it. If you see what I mean, they're more clued up. And there was just something you said that I kind of just wanted to add on that. There is and I should have said it earlier on, but I think it's important I say it, there is a mixed race identity in and of itself. Mixed race doesn't mean black. And I think sometimes, this is my diplomatic answer here, sometimes, no matter what, forget society, so Meghan Markle, as far as the press is concerned, black, but actually being mixed race is a thing. And I think sometimes black people, I don't know if whites do or not, but let's just say mixed race in this sense, meaning black and white, just for argument's sake, let's talk, because there's obviously different other types of mixed race, so let's just say black and white here. Sometimes we can talk for the mixed race experience, and actually what we need on this couch right now is somebody who is mixed race saying, this was my experience. Because actually I can't talk on that. And that's why I said earlier on, my daughter will have her own navigation system, and I can't be imposing on her. Well, I'm Jamaican, and your granddad and grandmother are Jamaican, and your cousins are all Jamaican, so you best just adopt Jamaican. Do you know what I mean? Because she got her own set of, she got her own role to navigate of what the mixed race experience means. And I saw some things on Twitter in the last few years where I think kind of like Twitter, big people, Twitter handlers who are mixed race are saying, can somebody please listen to our stories? A mixed race story isn't a black story, it's not a white story, it's a mixed race story.
And I think that's a great way to end, man. I think we could carry on talking, but Dim is giving me the wrap up signs. You gotta go. You ain't gotta go home. You gotta go. But I think this has been a good conversation. I think we could carry on talking for a while because there's stuff that I think, that we will probably want to say and get out. There's more avenues to express. But I think the way you've ended it there is really important around, maybe when we do this again, we have a mixed race person that can speak at least from their personal experience about what it's been like for them. And I guess we're all learning in our own family setups about how we navigate those differences and make sure ultimately our children we're there to support our children and they grow up in the best way possible. But yeah, great conversation, guys. It's been a pleasure. We've been Music, Football, Fatherhood, Daily Debates podcast, the podcast for dads who want open conversations about fatherhood. Obviously, follow the hashtag Daily Debates, get involved in the conversations, and let us know your experiences as well. What's your experiences been like as a father, wherever you're from? We want to hear from you about your experiences on this topic. So thanks very much. See you next week.